Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm here with my dad to do a marriage Q&A today. Lots of people have asked questions on Instagram and this was a really highly requested video.
Let's see how it goes. So I just want to say, look, I'm not like a Muslim scholar or a mufti or something like that. So anything I say is something that I apply in my personal life because I think I know enough about Islam. I've studied it all my life to do that for myself. I'm not giving people fatwas. But look at what I say. If it makes sense, think about it.
Your opinion on arranged marriage?
So it depends on what you mean by arranged marriage. So if you think of this as a spectrum, on the one extreme, your parents find someone for you and they say, you're going to marry that person whether you like it or not.
So it's not forced,
right?
It's just an arranged, it's just there.
Yeah, but at its most extreme, it can be nearly forced.
Okay.
Because they'll say to you, this is the person we've chosen, we've already agreed, you've got to agree with it. And you, by fact of you reconciling yourself to it, they're not forcing you, but to all intents and purposes they are, right? The other end of the spectrum might be they'll say, you go and find someone, come and tell us who it is, we'll say yes or no, or we'll say yes because you can't really say no. And there's lots of options in between. It depends on what you mean by arranged marriage. I'm definitely not for that first example.
I would have thought that was clearly forced. But you're just saying that it's not always understood.
But they'll say it's not forced because you've agreed.
Yeah, but it's still a lot of pressure.
It is, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that makes
sense.
So
I think that's still wrong. I think in today's modern society where, most people around us are educated, reasonable, have a sense of awareness of life, I think you have the capacity to go out there and find someone who's right for you. And once you've found that sort of person, go to your parents and say, this is the person I want to marry, and you have an open conversation about that. And I think that's the way these things should be done. What is clear in Islam is this, that nobody can force somebody else to marry.
Yeah.
Because one of the core principles of marriage is consent between the two people that marry. So if the two people do not want to get married, they cannot be forced into a marriage. That's not, in my view, that's not a marriage. If two people are forced. That's really, really clear. Okay? So the people getting married have to consent to that marriage. They have to go into that relationship openly, willingly, without any coercion, without any force. So because a lot of Muslims who live in this country have come from Asia, or the Arab countries and so on, they brought a lot of those cultural customs with them. And so one of the things we're dealing with now is that confusion between Asian culture and Islamic teachings. And I think this is what makes some of our problems worse, or it makes some of this more confusing, let's say at least. If you look at what is the ideal in Islam, it should be that two people, and this is what happened at the time of the companions, at the time of the Sahaba. Somebody would say, I saw so-and-so and I like that person. And then they would go and ask their family and say, can we marry that person? And there were women who proposed to men and there were men who proposed to women. So so we're talking about 1400 years ago in Arab society, women were proposing to men. The Prophet's own wife, his first wife, Khadija, proposed to him. So we can't afford to get tied up in these cultural customs that we sometimes make our lives difficult with.
How do you know when you found the one and what you're meant to be looking for?
If I'm really, really honest about this, I think it could be quite difficult to know that somebody is the one. But when you found one person who you get on with, who you trust, who you know brings out the best in you, and you hopefully bring out the best in that person, that has similar aspirations in life, that is good for you, good for what you want to do with your life. But I think that's the sort of person you should settle with. A person who makes you happy, and a person who is good for you, good for your deen, good for your faith, good for your integrity, encourages you to be a good person.
But what about factors like your degree? So the typical requirements lots of parents might have today, typically Asians, might be where they're working or the type of job role they're in, or basically the man being employed, sometimes making more money, the type of degree, like I said, they have, the university they went to, their family, what their family's like, what about all those factors?
So there are some things that are clearly logistically important in that if you're going to set up a home together with somebody, you want to know that you can support each other, not that they can support you.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a very old way of thinking.
Yeah.
The reality is nowadays that in a family, both the man and the woman will work, right? So you're supporting each other. Yes, there are certain things I think common sense would dictate that you look for in each other. A certain level of compatibility that you identify. But these are all negotiated. These are not hard and fast rules. And in any relationship, there are going to be a huge set of priorities.
Yeah.
So you've got to think, what's at the top of my list? And I would put, and this is very personal, I would put at the top of my list a person who makes you happy. A person who is good. You know, like has a good personality. Has integrity, has honesty.
Good in terms of, those
decency,
values. Not necessarily just like good personality, like as in you vibe well. Or
no,
like,
I think that's a start.
Good person.
That's a start, but it has to be much deeper than that, doesn't it? Because if you're going to spend your life with someone, you want someone who will make you happy and someone you can, thrive with. Not just be happy with, but thrive with. So I would say those things come at the top. And then other things like, and at the same time, how does when that person gets angry, how do they behave?
Yeah.
When that person's upset with you, how do they behave? Because in every relationship, you will have anger, you will have arguments, you will have upset. That's just a fact of life. So how do people behave in those negative circumstances as well as the positive? You might then make other things important. I don't know, you might have a weird thing like, I want someone with a certain type of moustache or a certain colour hair or a certain type of beard
and
or whatever
it is.
That's for you. That's a subjective thing for you to think about. That's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
But put it in a hierarchy and recognise what's more important.
Okay.
And I would put the personality and the quality, those sorts of personal qualities, like honesty and integrity, at the top. Because if a person is honest and has integrity, they can also grow in all sorts of positive directions. You can grow together, and there's lots of skills and things that you will acquire on the journey, but you've got to have the right building blocks.
Yeah.
Now, I personally wouldn't have degree, career, that sort of thing anywhere near the top.
Okay.
If at all, personally. But I'm not going to say to somebody else, you shouldn't think of those things, because everybody's got to make up their own mind.
Yeah.
But have a hierarchy. And think to yourself, what's the most important quality?
If you were a Muslim girl, as perhaps older, educated, doesn't feel that they've met someone of their standards, so would rather be alone, then...
I think we should respect their choice.
But what about completing half your deen?
So this is where anything that Islam teaches us, we can't take literally, and we can't just take that one thing and ignore everything else that Islam has taught us, because... If that was the case, then everybody throughout Islamic history would have got married or would have tried to get married, and clearly some people haven't. So we've got to respect people's choices, we've got to let people make their own decisions. Let's not forget that marriage isn't fard. It's not a compulsory action, it's a highly recommended action. It's not like prayer or fasting. It's a highly encouraged thing. If you do it, it's a good thing. But if you don't do it, you're not sinful for that particular lack of action. So, I think we've got to let people be who they want to be, give people some trust, give people some autonomy, some respect. And if a person decides, man or woman, that marriage is not for them, it's not for them. Let's respect that.
How should you date in Islam?
So like I said at the outset, this is not an Islamic fatwa or anything like that. This is my personal opinion as your father. I don't think it's reasonable to expect two people when they're young to come together without knowing each other, get into a marriage, and then have all the burden of that marital relationship unfold after that marriage begins. A lot of that is emotion, a lot of that is just working out who the other person is, and some of that is physical intimacy as well. Now, I can't see how, unless you know the person, at least to some extent, how you can then just flick a switch.
Yeah, literally.
Overnight, literally, that a person who's completely strange to you or becomes completely intimate to you after the wedding. I think that's really unreasonable. And I think there has to be a phase where you get to know people. What you call that, I don't know, and I don't have a word for it, whether you call it courtship or an engagement or a nikah or whatever you call it.
Most people date. Most Muslims, their families are aware of it and
Yeah, I
they
think
know
so.
that they date.
I think so, yeah,
So
that's right.
do you think that's problematic?
No, I just think we need to be honest. I think, for me, religion, if anything, is about honesty.
Yeah.
And let's not be hypocrites. Let's not say something and do something else. Let's just, let's say what we're doing, explain what we're doing in the right way. I'm not saying go out there and be reckless and be careless, but what we should aspire to is to have consistency between our actions and our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So what we believe in, we should also practice. And if, for example, and I know it can be really difficult for some people, right? So that's why they may not be able to openly disclose what's happening.
Yeah.
But we want to be in a situation where people can openly say, look, I can't marry this person if I don't know that person.
Yeah.
Even in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, even 1400 years ago, when somebody, proposed marriage to somebody else, it wasn't that they saw somebody passing by and they proposed. It was because they lived in a small society where they knew that person. They would have known their family. They would have known that person from childhood.
That's interesting.
Because these were really, really small communities. So you have a strong level of understanding of who that family is, what they represent, what that person is like. Because you'd have seen them in many different contexts.
Yeah.
In today's society, there is no way you can know everybody in that way. So there's got to be a different way of getting to know people.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a time period, whether it's a few months or a few weeks or a few years, whatever the people think is right, where they get to know each other better. And I think that's only reasonable.
Do you believe in the one?
Yeah. I think so. I don't think everybody is created in a way where God has said that person will marry that person and that person will marry that person.
But what about we were created in pairs? Every Muslim's favourite line.
So these are general spiritual and esoteric ideas about everything is created in a state of balance.
Okay.
There's duality in nature.
Yeah.
There's right and wrong. There's heat and cold. There's light and darkness. So it's in a very general sense where you think that things are made in pairs, in the sense of contrast.
Okay.
In the sense of opposites or two things that can come together.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that when one soul is created, another soul is created for that person, and that's the only person that person will ever be happy with.
Yeah. Because
if that was the case, then we should know who that person is. Otherwise, if we don't find that person, we're miserable.
Yeah, but
by definition.
Could that not be the case? Like, could it not be that
then,
you could potentially meet your person or you don't?
So I think it's a nice romantic idea to think that you are one soul and there is one other soul out there that's destined for you, and at some point through your life, you'll go through your life and you'll find that one other soul.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice, sweet, romantic idea, and I'm not knocking that. I think that's a good thing to think about. Do I think that's true? No, because it can't work like that. Okay. Because otherwise, everybody would marry that one person or be miserable.
Yeah.
And we know that life exists between these states of complete happiness and complete misery. Mm-hmm. In reality, everybody's life is full of some challenges and a lot of happiness.
Yeah.
And that's the life that we live.
Yeah. And
then you have some societies where one person marries more than one other person. Mm-hmm. How does it work in that I'm not. It's not something I encourage or condone even. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's what Islam teaches, despite some people saying that.
Yeah.
But how would it work in that scenario? So I don't think that mathematically speaking, every soul has one partner. It's more of an inspiration for us to find the right person, to engage in that search for a good person, a good mate. But that's what I think we're being told there.
That makes sense. That's a good point. But I would have said that even though that you can meet multiple people, say that you could be compatible with or be happy with, are there not some people or certain people that a certain person, say, that you would be significantly more happy with.
Of course.
And is that not
of course, and that's what you should be looking for.
Yeah.
But in the billions of people out there, there may be 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 people who would be equally happy with you, and you'd be happy with them. And there may be like hundreds and thousands of other people who you might just get on with okay, but not be as happy with.
Yeah.
And there might be millions of people who you just like are okay with, and tens of millions of people that you dislike. Do you see? It's like a pyramid sort of thing. But that doesn't mean at the top of that pyramid is just one person.
Yeah. Oh, but it was a nice thing to think.
That's what I was saying to you. I think it is a lovely thing. It's a lovely ideal to aspire to. But I think that's all it is. It's encouragement to aspire to find the right person.
Okay. What does Islam say about soulmates? I think you slightly covered this earlier. But do you know what Islam actually says about soulmates?
There is that point about we created everything in pairs, but I don't think it refers to that.
Okay.
I think it's a general thing about life, creation in general. There's a problem here around the debate around qadr. Qadr is the destiny and predestination, and where my personal view on this rests is that this is about the knowledge of God. So God doesn't tell us what we have to do and what we can't do. These hard lines are not put in our lives. Except for things like life and death and, some big things in life. But in terms of everyday life, these are not dictated by God. Otherwise, we're not accountable for our own actions. But I think in terms of something like soulmates, I think it's a really lovely idea. It's a nice romantic idea. I just don't see how it works in reality.
Is that your view?
It's my understanding. I mean, because, as I say, historically, there were, polygamous relationships and so on. So you can't...
So in Islam, is there a concept of soulmate?
There is an idea. That's why I was talking about destiny, because there is a sense that you're destined to marry somebody.
Yeah.
And, the person that comes to you will be the person that is destined towards you. But that's a description of destiny that is, in my view, quite fatalistic, because it's like saying the food that you eat is destined for you. The earnings that you have are destined for you. What does that actually mean? Does that mean if you sit at home and you don't go to work, that money will come towards you?
Yes.
I don't know. Does it mean that if you don't cook, you'll get the food, somebody will come, God will come and put the food into your mouth? No. It's a way of us thinking about, the fact that someone is out there looking after us, and we will find happiness in our lives. And it's a way of us as a human species finding solace, finding sense. Finding some sort of sense in all this complexity, that there is someone destined for us. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't find someone, and you don't do your homework, as in you get to know somebody, or why is it then that there's so much pain and misery in marriage? I mean, we're talking about marriage as a very romantic idea, and it should be, and it is, right? But let's flip the coin, look at the other side of it. Unfortunately, we know that in the society that we live in, I don't know what the latest stats are, 50% or 2 out of 3 marriages end in divorce.
That's crazy.
So why is that happening? Where is that person's soulmate? And why did that soulmate idea not work for that person? So
I was gonna say
it's a nice romantic idea, and I'd love to think of it as true, but I think the danger with that is that we fool ourselves into walking into something without doing due diligence.
What do you both see as relationship goals?
I would say to be happy, to be able to support each other at good times and bad, to bring out the best in each other. So you nurture each other, you push each other in positive ways. And I think to form, a family unit together that can be solid and strong. Society is made up of these units. Society is only as strong as these units are. And if these units are not strong, then society is fragmented. If you can form a good, solid relationship where you can nurture lives in that unit, then you're contributing to that society, you're helping that society. What would you say?
I think it would be very similar in the sense that definitely 2 people that can support each other. So even if one person is at a lower point in their life, the other person helps them. And I think that's okay for one person to be at a low point in their life and the other person bring them out of that, and that's not necessarily a reflection of a person being good or bad for the other. It's just part of what a relationship would be. I think being on the same page in terms of values that you think are important to you, and going in the same direction that you want to go in life.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So then I think that allows you to then thrive, because things like the way that you vibe and like you say your humour, or the things that you enjoy doing, that could be so different for so many different people. But I might have something that I prefer. So say like chats and like having fun with someone, that might differ to someone else who wants to travel and do lots of different things. I think in that sense, if you found someone that you're on the same page with like that, then you can thrive.
Yeah, I think values are really important. The values form the sort of the foundation of your outlook, don't they? So if there are certain things that you place as important in your life, I don't think that you need to be exactly the same in all respects, but I think your values should be quite in line with each other. But
I think personalities can be different.
But yeah, you can have very different personalities. You can have very different likes and dislikes. Yeah. You know, like your hobbies can be totally different.
I feel like that's what brings more to your, like adds to your relationship.
The values bring the coherence. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. It's been really interesting hearing all of those questions. I'm very happy to try and answer them. But just remember, please, that these are my very personal thoughts and reflections. They're not supposed to be scholarly or religious answers to anything like that. But you know, if you found something there that makes sense, take it, think about it. Each situation may be so different and so complex that a general answer may not be the thing for you really. But if you want to go into specifics, contact Zainab or myself directly, and we can try and talk to you. Can't promise that we'll be able to help you, but we can always try.
A series of advice videos.
I don't know.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe for more videos. I think we're going to do the next few questions in part 2, so look out for that one. Bye.
Thank you everyone. Bye bye.